Hello and welcome, I'm Raziel, and so while I'm talking about orcs in this kind of week, maybe some couple of episode specials, because this is actually building up to something with the orcs for my soon, I promise you it really is. And so the question I get to is, where did the colours come from? They didn't just appear out the blue. We can obviously say that the orcs do see in colour because they make very much distinctions between colours and that they have a effect on their army and on the faction. But where do the colours come from? And the thing is with culture, most cultures come from an external source. It's something they've seen, something that has happened, has caused the culture to evolve. We see this a lot in modern day. It's quite a common anthropological theory. And so I think that's worth exploring, to be honest with you. And of course I'm talking about 40k orcs here, not fantasy orcs, because I need to make that clear, and we may need to talk about a different faction altogether. We are going to talk about a different faction altogether, to be honest with you, and it is the Eldar. Now, I know the first argument here would be, what about the Orks? They would have seen the Eldar. That is true. They would have seen the Eldar as created by the Old Ones, without any real culture at the time. However, the Orks are not Orks. They may have evolved from them. But if we were to see Neanderthals, if Neanderthals were to see us now, they would be their actions and the way they are would be very different. And the cultures would be different. So there would be an evolution of cultures. And as we know, there are a lot of colour similarities between the Orks and the Eldar, or Azrani. And it does go all the way back before the creation of the Eye of Terror. Now, the Eye of Terror was created just before the Great Crusade, for those who didn't know. And it is the reason the Emperor could actually leave Terra and start his crusade for the Imperium. So it goes before then, which is something I'll need to bring up later. So that's just adding context to something later, just so you know. First things first, let's talk about the colours. You have, again, let's go. Red is fast, blue is lucky, green is tough, as in leadership, and mean, and blue, well I said blue didn't I? Yellow is wealth, and big guns. So let's talk about it. The first ones we're going to talk about is red. It's the most common, and I didn't really want to do the same joke twice. And so red. And the Eldar most commonly red are Sarwyn. And the thing is, what many people realise about the Eldar, the Craftworld Eldar of Sarwyn came from the Crone World, well it's Crone World now because it's in the Eye of Terror, or Maiden World, Sarwyn. And they keep a lot of their traditions alive. The way they fight, the way they mobilise is kept alive within all their factions. Nothing really changes. Sometimes it just gets worse and more frequent, or it just comes less. So, Sarwyn. And as you know, Sarwyn are red, and they like jet bugs. They like going fast. And that is probably where orcs come from. Get it from. Because when they see a red Eldari, they were going fast. And I know it's like a really a really big leap of logic to go from they're red so they're fast instead of they're fast because they're red. But if you look at this from more of an orc, very straightforward point of view, if they were to see another Eldari, say Aelitok, who's blue, they would go, why is that blue one not going fast? The red ones are going fast. And if they saw another one, such as a Yandon, who is yellow, and they go, hang about, the yellow one isn't fast, the blue one isn't fast, but the red one is. So, red ones go faster. Simple. Now let's talk about blue. Blue meaning lucky. Now this is kind of a weird one because it's more or less not being the Eldari itself, being a lucky person or a lucky character or a lucky, Eldari. The seeing one would have been lucky. See, like I said, while they were still on their Maiden World, on their Crone World, they still had scouts, but they were very few and far between. Not in the numbers we see now, because of course the paths tend to drive outcasts away, and then they come back. They still had wanderlust. They always did. It's nothing that much has changed. Now it's more of an extreme wanderlust. It is, but because they were so few and far between, seeing a blue Eldari out in the wild, like on a planet, for the orc must have been lucky. It's like, I saw a blue one, and he called it, no, I did. I saw a blue one. So he would be considered himself lucky because he saw the blue Eldari. Right, I hope that makes sense. Right. Now we get back to the Eye of Terror, because this is where the big change has happened. However, it's not a big of change as it seems. Biltan is a very much a warrior craft world. They have a lot of aspect warriors. They use a lot of swooping hawks, warp spiders, dire avengers, and they all appeared after the Eye of Terror. All the aspects appeared after the Eye of Terror. So the aspect warriors are pretty much the same age, are actually younger than the Astartes, if you think about it, or the Imperium itself, because they were created after the unification of man. It was literally the opening of the Eye of Terror causing the path of a warrior to exist, and therefore have these very dedicated paths to certain forms of combat. That's how it happened. And Biltan used a lot of aspect warriors. However, beforehand, they were still a very warrior-like clone world. They were still much a fighting clone world. A lot of the Eldar Empire at the time, militant force, came from Biltan, who were green. So they would wore the green heads and the green tanks. So the Orks would say, these Eldari are they're obviously the leaders. They were more in numbers. They were ones in charge. And they were also green. So they were considered green, even among themselves, because we can still say that. And I will get to that in a minute, because they were green. But it's sort of like coalesced in their head and agreed with them that being green made you the leader, made you tougher. The greener you are, such as the tanks blowing things up, made that more important than, any other Eldari, which is more white than green. So the more green it was, the tougher and more. It just seemed more important to the Orks. Yeah, Orks have leaders and they do have hierarchy, but if they see tanks blowing up stuff, they go, "That's better. That's greener, so it's better." And there you go. And that's it's really. I do feel it's really cool. I think it's so cool that they've added these colours into the lore. That it actually works. Like, you can look at the Ork point of view and see how it works with other factions. I quite like it. Now, let's go to Iyanden. Now, Iyanden is another one that has changed since, well, not just the Eye of Terror, but the Tyrannid High Fleets have really caused Iyanden to go back. And yeah, they were kind of lavish before the Eye of Terror, before the Tyrannid attack, or Tyrannid attack, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, they were still pretty lavish. They were the richer of the craft worlds, of the Maiden Worlds. And we can see this now in the Eldari craft worlds, because they have the most infinity cores. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. So they tend to have more of those, and more Wraith Lords, more Wraith Knights, etc. And the bigger guns. That is always the most important. When you talk about the colour yellow, it's not about just wealth. They also had a lot of the bigger guns, like they do now. They still have the bigger guns, like the D cannons and stuff like that, being carried by infantry. They still had them then, they still have them now. Next is, of course, black, and black is Ulfway. Ulfway has always been, this is the most silliest one, have always been the most psychic, and Orks didn't really have a psychic power or psychic strength, so fighting against psychers they probably discovered to be quite hard, because they would put up psychic shields, and this would of course make them tough to kill. And that's pretty much all I can say about that, because there's not much else. There are other colours, of course, of both, which I've not gone across, and I'm still not mentioning in purple. Right, I'm not saying it. It's a meme colour. Not something I agree with. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video. It was actually quite fun to make, actually. This one was quite fun to research. I like talking about the Eldar and the Orks. Orks are always cool to talk about. And finally, there are links to Wayland Games down below if you wish to save up to 20% on your Warhammer and free delivery after £20. There's also Forbidden Planet. If you want to support the channel, this is why I don't like using Patreon. And why I don't have a membership. I don't want you guys to give me money, I don't like it. I really don't. I don't want to go, "Oh, please support my Patreon." Alright, I don't like doing it. So I'd rather you go to one of these links, get yourself something nice. You're supporting the channel either way. And I'm happy, because you're treating yourself, or you're getting something for your army. I'm happy. Comics as well as t-shirts, mugs, TVs, t-shirts, and everything else. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.